Welcome to Tuesday Tips with Dr. Latanya Hughes and Shanae Jordan, where we share our thoughts on different topics to help you be the best version of you possible so you can spread lots of love and light. Let's see what we're talking about this week. Thanks for watching.
And welcome back, you guys. It's another episode of Tuesday Tips, and it's a new month and a new quarter, actually. My God, Lord. First quarter of the year is down. And we started the year off with some tips on just how you can have a fantastic year. And so hopefully you are using some of those tips. If not, go back and watch our January episodes. We ran down like 20 plus tips of some things that you can do to make this your best year ever. And so we've just kind of been having a good ride with these Tuesday tips. And so right now, we have a really good topic for you to help you continue to have a great year, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to help y'all learn how to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times we're talking at one another
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
not to or with one another. The whole purpose of conversation is just that, to converse, to have healthy dialogue between one another. And a big part of that is understanding it. And I think a lot of what we're seeing all around the social media, on the news, everywhere, is a lot of miscommunication because we're not seeking to understand. We're communicating and having conversation to respond. And so we don't listen.
Mm-hmm.
We don't listen. We're too busy trying to formulate our response based off of what we anticipate the person saying. That's not communication.
Mm-hmm.
It's not healthy. It doesn't facilitate healthy dialogue. It doesn't help for relationship building. It doesn't sustain a relationship. I don't care if we're talking about in a platonic relationship. I don't care if it's an intimate. I don't care if it's on your job, in your church, in the marketplace, anywhere. We're not communicating very well because we're already formulating our response because we've already prejudged what that person is saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're thinking that this is my response, and we're not really taking in what they're saying. The other thing is, to a lot of times we're emotional, and so we very much we read into what people are saying based off of how we're feeling
Mm-hmm.
at the time, rather than really taking a step back and looking objectively
Mm-hmm.
at what the other person is saying. And so we just want to get into it and have a really, really good talk here about what it is to communicate very well, to have healthy dialogue. I just finished doing a teaching about this over the weekend at a leadership summit. And one of the things I did was really define what it means to be an effective communicator. First of all, you can't effectively communicate if you don't know what it is. And basically it means, are you good at it?
Mm-hmm.
And can you are and by being good at it, meaning you can say what you need to say with the least amount of words.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of things happening in communication beyond what we say. Body language, facial expressions, tone, pitch, the speed at which we communicate, all of these different things affect how we communicate one to another.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can tell you I'm interested, but this face right here says I'm really not interested in what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
This face right here says I'm checked out. I'm completely disengaged with you.
Mm-hmm.
Versus a face that says,
Mm-hmm.
this is a face that says, I'm engaged. I'm really tuning into what you're saying. I'm taking in what you're saying. I'm making eye contact. I'm not making too much eye contact to the point that I'm uncomfortable, but I'm really taking in what you're saying. And then I let you finish, and then I repeat what you say just so I can understand what you're saying. And if I don't, I'm going to ask you what's called an open-ended question, meaning it's not a yes or no question. It's, I need you to expound upon what you said, because I don't clearly understand this. I repeated this, but I understood it to mean this. So I need to ask more questions because I really don't get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And so it's really important that we do have healthy dialogue around what it means to actually be able to hold a conversation and have healthy dialogue, because there's so many things that affect communication beyond, again, the words we speak. The words we speak are just a small fraction of what it means to communicate. In fact, one of the things I challenged the people this weekend to do was to listen 80% of the time and only talk 20% of the time. And I even stretched it. I said, if you can stretch it, listen 90% and talk 10% of the time. A lot of times we don't communicate well because we want to make everything about us. Me, my point of view, and we're not even making an attempt. When you have that point of view, you're not even going to make an attempt to understand the other person, which means communication is already lost. So, Shanae,
I think you made some.
Y'all, so that's why I'm doing that. This is a great topic, by the way. We're seeing this issue everywhere. But yeah, we're gonna let her talk 80% of the time. I can actually listen.
I think that you said some really great things, especially about most of us, listening to respond instead of listening to comprehend. I think it happens a lot of times when we are in heated, discussions with someone, a friend, a coworker, a boss, your spouse. And during those moments, we tend to already pre-record a conversation in our heads. So when it's time to, to speak, we already know what you're going to say, how we're going to respond, how it's going to be. We already got an exit strategy. And I'm guilty of that, because it's a defense mechanism. It's like, let me, be defensive. Let me be defensive and let me go ahead and say what I need to say and be able to have a comeback. So that way, I don't feel some type of way, especially, again, like I said, in a heated conversation, a conversation that requires you to kind of be in a spot where it's uncomfortable. We do that when we're uncomfortable. We get defensive. I mean, it's not a bad thing because you're protecting yourself. However, in those conversations, it come across as negativity. Again, I'm guilty of it. Especially when I have something I need to say to somebody, and I'm just like, okay, let me think about what I'm gonna say. Let me think about what they gonna say, so that way when they say it, boom. Two, perspectives. I think we all have an issue of some sort about different perspectives. When we have a conversation that we're passionate about, something where like religion, politics, just overall feelings or how you feel a relationship should go, we feel like our perspective is the best way to think. It's the best way for you to respond or to do something. And that's not always true. Just because someone has a different perspective than you doesn't mean that it's wrong, that they don't understand you, that they don't, get you. Yeah, they get you, but sometimes it's okay to look at it at a different perspective because your perspective may not work for every situation. And that's what makes us unique as humans. And makes us unique as humans because everybody has their own, unique personality, thought process. People can do it different ways. It's okay. Again, I always like to use myself as an example because I deal with that too. And I had to learn that my way ain't always the best way. So I think those two things, being defensive and, not looking at other people's perspectives can cause communications to be wishy-washy. Would you agree, Dr. Hughes?
I do. I think I really like what you were saying about the exit strategy. That really hit home. That was a powerful statement because that's the truth. A lot of people, if you start looking at a conversation from the beginning as if you're ready, you don't even want to have it, what's the point in engaging in the conversation in the first place? Now, with that said, some people are not confrontational.
Yeah.
So if they find the conversation to be confrontational from the beginning, they're automatically, as far as their defensive strategy is, find a way out of the conversation because uncomfortable, just like you said, because it's uncomfortable for them. They don't like confrontation They're not open to engaging at that point. That's where at that point, the person who initiated the conversation, you're the leader because you initiated the conversation. It's your responsibility to understand that person's body language, facial expressions, the lack of engagement in that conversation to discern whether they really, what's going on that they don't want to engage.
Right.
And that's where you need to ask probing questions. Is this conversation uncomfortable for you? Why? And and find out and make it and maybe the environment is uncomfortable. Maybe if I'm a woman and I'm walking in a room and there's 3 men trying to have a conversation with me, I'm shutting down automatically. I'm defensive because I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And it's not an open space. Versus, having a conversation with a panel of people with a different variety might be a little bit different. Think about an interview. Sometimes the interviews aren't even happening in offices traditionally anymore. Why? Because if you're in a more public open space, people are a little bit more relaxed. You can really kind of get a feel for them. So sometimes you have to think about the dynamics of the conversation of what's happening, because if the person feels attacked,
they're going to tap back. Attack back or shut down.
And sometimes it's just, their strategy is just that. Let me just listen at what's happening. And a lot of times people are not listening at what you're saying. They're listening at how you say. I always say it's not what you say, it's how you say what you say. And how you say what you say is more than just the words you use. It's your tone of voice, your pitch, how quickly are you talking? It's body language, facial expressions, attitude. It's a lot of different things. And I will say this too. It's how you have treated people. Because people have a perception of who you are and what you say and how things come across based off of how you've treated them. And so it's a long history in communication. And that what it boils down to is, can I trust what you say? And if trust has not been established, I can guarantee you the immediate response is, what's my exit strategy out of this situation? Out of this conversation. Because I don't trust anything you say. I don't have a reason to trust anything you say. Versus I can trust a little bit, or I trust that this is a safe space to have conversation about this. Because if you're someone who is not trustworthy to me, I'm going to say as minimal as possible with words, and my body language is going to let you know I'm not giving you anything more than this. Which means now the conversation has now been defeated. So I really like what you were saying about the exit strategy and why people approach conversation with an exit strategy in mind, because it's true. Either the conversation is heated, it's confrontational, or they're uncomfortable. So either in any of those contexts, they're going to be defensive. And the defensive strategy is, I'm ready to go. I've been ready to go from the beginning. I'm not engaging in this conversation. And some people... It's a level of pettiness because I'm not talking to you about this on your territory, on your terms. And it's like, listen, either we're going to talk or we're going to talk. It doesn't matter. Somebody has to be the mature person. And sometimes you have to understand that you're engaging in conversation with people who are just immature. And at that point, you just have to make a decision whether or not you even want to be bothered. Because you just might be wasting air. Because you can be really good at communicating what you're communicating in a very neutral way, that way, you're not in your feelings, it's not this, it's not that, and they're just still going to perceive it the way they want to because they're being childish and immature. At that point, you just have to, because again, that person is saying they're not interested in your unique perspective. They don't care. And you have to take those things into consideration.
That is, that is so true. And especially when you're having an issue with someone and they want to bring somebody into the conversation, that's attack mode. Because I know me, if I'm having a conversation with Dr. Hughes and she brings her sister, and I know they're close and they have a bond and she's going to have her back, I'm going to feel attacked. Why? Because she already has a perception of me. So I already have an exit strategy, meaning I'm going to come in there like, okay, well, say what you got to say because I'm about to be out. And we have to be careful with those things. We have to be careful of how, especially when we want someone to really know how we feel. You can be passionate, you can be, you can feel how you feel, but you can't make other people, feel how you feel. You can't do that. And you have to respect other people's feelings. And not saying anything sometimes, that's the answer. Like that's a response, that's communication, body language. If you're slouching, if you're just staring off into space and not even making eye contact, or noticing that I'm in the room, that's the other person's like, okay, I'm out. We don't need to have this conversation. So I think that's definitely great. Another thing I want to bring up too, tone. You touched on this too, tone and pitch. Sometimes it can be taken out of context, especially with text messaging. When I feel as though I'm going to have a deep conversation, or a conversation that requires more than a page or two, I'm gonna call you. Because if I say what I have to say in 5 or 6 text, messages, you're gonna either be confused, you're gonna be in your feelings, or you're gonna be happy. Because you just never know. Caps, you can't use all caps anymore, because caps mean you're yelling at me. So you're excited. Just different things. So text messaging, emails, letters, however you communicate, writing down, it's a tone. It's how the person is perceiving it. So I think we really should get better at listening to other people, as you have said, Dr. Hughes, and just taking in what they're saying, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it hurts, even if you're not used to it, because some people are not used to having conversations. Right. Saying less is more. Mm-hmm. Because nobody wants to hear you drawing out a whole story and a journey to say one thing, to say that you was hurt by what I said. I don't need to know that your daddy did this and your mama did this and your sister did. It's not relevant, to this conversation. It's relevant for your life, but it's drawn out. And at that point, I'm not listening anymore, because I don't even know what to talk about. So sometimes, it's better just to say what you need to say, get to the point, say what you got to say. And so that way it can create that dialogue, instead of it just being you talking, and then you expect the other person to respond, but it's so much that was said that they don't even know where to start. And then you're getting mad because you feel like they don't care. It's just, as women, I can't really talk about men, but as women, we're emotional. So when we don't feel like you listening, or we feel like you don't care, you're going to see on our face, body language, and our mouths. So saying less is more.
I agree. I wanted to look up something about the effective use of silence, because I think if we understand the power of silence, mm-hmm. And the value that it lends to conversation, we would use it more. Like you said, less is more, because a lot of times we get to talking, we get diarrhea in the mouth, and then we give too much irrelevant information. Mm-hmm. And now the other person is confused, because like you said, they have no idea what you're talking about. You off on 11 different tangents. But here's the thing. Here's what let me put a pin in this and say this. Sometimes you have to know when people just need to vent.
That's true. Yeah.
Sometimes it's not about getting a response. Mm-hmm. Sometimes some people just need to vent and let things out. Mm-hmm. And you have to get beyond yourself and feeling like I just want to help by giving a response. No, sometimes the best help you can do is just give a listening ear and just let it go, and don't feel like you always have to respond with words. Sometimes just being a listening ear. Mm-hmm. And letting that person know that you're listening and you hear them and you hear their heartbeat, because a lot of times what they're saying isn't what they're saying, isn't what they need to get out. And so if you effectively use silence, mm-hmm. you can really hear what the person really wants to say, what they really want to talk about. Because a lot of times when people come to you about stuff, it's not really what they want to talk about, unless it's just really formal, like on your job, when your boss want to talk to you about something specific. But when people need to vent, you just sometimes just need to let that person vent and let them get it out. Yeah. And so, you want to effectively use silence because it allows you to think, breathe, listen, and hold the attention of the listener. Nothing strengthens authority so much as silence, Leonardo da Vinci. And that's true. You really can say a whole lot more by saying nothing at all. Mm-hmm. Because it speaks volumes. The fact that you're able to just sit and listen and digest what people are saying, it garners so much more respect for you. And then taking it a step further, not spreading what you hear from people to other itching ears. Now I can trust you. And now you're a safe space for me to have conversation.
Yeah.
So when you use silence, it allows others to invest in your ideas. It lets people get out what they need to get out. And you can actually hear how they feel about what you said, how they feel about you. You know what I mean? It just, you really can, it's so, you just gather information.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get the answers you're looking for, even if you haven't asked them. Just give people a chance to talk it out. Because here's the thing, is sometimes it's hard because we have responses that jump out because it's so powerful, something they said. But so I wouldn't interrupt. Sinead, what did I do? I just started writing stuff down. I wrote because it was key information. We tend to interrupt. Not that it's always a bad thing, but we just want to get a thought out so we don't lose it. And that's we're not saying, not knocking that, but maybe try writing down. That's why a lot of times I keep a pen and pad with me. Now, if I'm walking, I can't do that. I'm sorry. But so that you don't lose your thought. You know what I mean? You can say it at an appropriate time. But I think a lot of times people don't effectively use silences because they have this issue with time. And so it just seems like the conversation is dragging on much longer than what it is, and it's really not. Again, that's because you're not used to using silence, which tells me you don't meditate. That's I can tell people who don't meditate, who don't understand how to embrace silence and rest and enjoy space without noise, because they start fidgeting and different things. But sometimes, it's okay. Get used to it. It's something that you probably want to practice. 15 seconds of silence every day. Try it. Just try it. And then you'll start, expanding it. But sometimes people don't effectively use silence because they're easily distracted. I mean, you have to be careful because your distraction could affect the conversation and where it goes. And so, you just really want to be able to let people express themselves. Like I said, sometimes people just need to straight up vent. That's all they need to do. It's not about you. They just need to vent. They need to get stuff that's on the inside out so that they can, move forward. So, those are some, I just wanted to look up a few things. INC magazine has a thing on how to use silence. LinkedIn has an article, 4 types of silence, learn how to communicate more effectively. There's so many, there's some coaching blogs out here on silence. Psychology Today, the effective use of silence. It's just so many different things out here on how to effectively use. There's even one on how to use silence in negotiations. If you're a business person and you need to know how to negotiate, there's an effective way to use silence in negotiation. And so, but just a little something there to understand how to effectively use silence, to your advantage, because there's power in not saying anything at all. And you get so much out of it. I listen for what's not said. It's not so much what people are saying. What are you not saying? There's so much, and when you effectively use silence, that's what you're doing. You're listening you're listening as a total person. We have 5 senses for a reason. And most of them are engaged or should be engaged when you're having a conversation.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And communication, I think it's a learned behavior. I really feel it is. I really feel it's a learned behavior because someone can say, well, I don't know how to communicate. I've never had a structure, say in my household, it was always chaos, or I'm shy. So, I don't make eye contact. I'm a person where I'm just always quiet. I'm always listening, and that's fine. And it's everybody, it doesn't matter what level of a communicator that you are. We are always learning how to communicate. Whether it's if you're learning, with your spouse, if you're learning with a family member, your children, And I think children really can help us, communicate, because they don't know how to communicate themselves. I mean, especially a baby, when they can't talk, they cry. So you kind of you have to figure out, okay, are you wet? You hungry? You sick? Or you just want to be picked up? And we can learn so much from a child. And communicating, and it's okay, like it's fine, but you just have to listen. I think that's the number one thing to do, is just listen, and take in what they're saying. Again, like Dr. Hughes said, listen to what is not being said, because sometimes someone that's talking to you don't know how, or don't want to feel vulnerable to say things that that's in between the lines. So that's for you, is to kind of pick that out of them. And it's always, what's in between the lines, what's in between the sheets, however the analogy you've heard of, because it's different for some people. So, but listening to that middle invisible line, can make or break a conversation. Again, your facial expressions. I have a bad, my facial expression, especially if you're saying something crazy. Listen, Dr. Hughes and I, we have it. We'll be like, which we have different facial expressions. The eyes, fall, our eyebrows come in, our lips perker, our nose it's just a lot. But that's communication, good, good or bad. So we just really want to share that with you, because, in a world full of social media, the news, we see a lot of bad communication. We see a lot of misinterpretations, and it causes a lot of just difficulties and hurt, and confusion. And it's just like, especially during the comments, if you read comments through online, listen, your head just be like, wait, what? y'all just doing too much. Just, do it too much. So, and words hurt and words heal. And we have to be mindful of that. Life and death is in the power of our tongue, and that's true. I mean, in one sentence you can say I love you, in another sentence you can say I hate you, and it could hurt or help someone in the same in the same text. So yeah.
And so I think it's really important to understand a couple of things too. One of the things we need to remember is that culture affects how we communicate.
Yeah.
And when I say culture, I'm talking beyond ethnicity.
Mm-hmm.
Hip hop is a culture. Arts and entertainment is a different culture. MMA is not the same as WWE wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Just I'm saying NBA is a culture that's not the same as NFL, which is not the
Mm-hmm.
same as baseball, hockey. Government is a culture, media is a culture, religion, whether it doesn't matter what you
Mm-hmm.
practice as a religion, is a culture. Why do I say that? Catholic is not the same as Episcopal, was not the same as
Mm-hmm.
AME, not the same as non-denomination Baptist or whatever. You know what I mean? And so
Mm-hmm.
there are different types of culture versus there's ethnic culture, of course, there's organization culture, and industry culture. So we have to take into context
Mm-hmm.
culture when it comes to communication. And then the other thing is to, so I say that is because when you were talking about eye contact, in some cultures it's inappropriate to make
Mm-hmm.
eye contact. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
in others, they feel like lack of eye contact means you can't be trusted.
Mm-hmm.
We make a lot of gestures here in the West that are not appropriate. So the okay sign that we make here, or what,
Mm-hmm.
there's two fingers or just one, that's the same. That's the same as doing this in some cultures, giving the middle finger. Now,
Mm-hmm.
where this is offensive to us in the West, this is actually the same as saying okay in other cultures. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be careful with gestures, because what's offensive to us is okay to other people, and what's
Mm-hmm.
okay to us is offensive to other people. It's
Yeah.
saying, whether it's eye contact or what. Sometimes a frown to us is actually a good thing in other cultures, because it means that you're paying attention and you're tuning in. And
Mm-hmm.
that smiling is offensive because it's more intimate. That's not an appropriate, you know,
Mm-hmm.
expression to share with people that you're not in an intimate relationship with, whether it's family or
Mm-hmm.
friends. You know what I mean? So if I don't know you socially, and I mean very close socially, it's not good to smile at me, especially in a business setting. And so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, what we think is okay is not really okay. And
Yeah.
especially I wanted to share that because in online, especially in social media land, like you said with comedians, that's a different culture. And if you don't understand that tone or that the sarcasm, because
Mm-hmm.
it's very sarcastic, if you can't read sarcasm in a text message,
Yeah.
in an email or online. And so, but there are different cultures, the hip hop culture is very different. The hip hop culture today is not the same as hip hop from the 70s or the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
It was first birthed, when rap and hip hop was first started. It's not the same versus what it is now. And so
Right.
generationally, baby boomers are not the same as Gen X, which is not the same as the new generation. They're all
Mm-hmm.
different. And so everybody has a different culture that should be respected. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're not saying that one is better than the next. What we're saying
Right.
is to understand different cultures so we can put conversation and decisions in the right context,
Right.
so that
Right.
we're not communicating, we're not talking at one another, but we're actually having healthy dialogue. One of the things I just tweeted about, they were talking about, once again, Chick-fil-A losing 2 airport contracts because of their anti-LGBTQ philosophy or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
the reality is Chick-fil-A has had the same value since they opened.
Mm-hmm.
Chick-fil-A has been around how long? Let's find out. I can't remember. I think they opened up in the 70s, to be honest, but let me not lie. Chick-fil-A has been around, because this is since 1957.
Mm.
Had the same value since 1957.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's an issue. It's not like they changed up, but they've had the same value since 1957. And what gets me is we want people to respect our values and our beliefs and our point of view, but we don't respect somebody else.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Chick-fil-A has been around since 1957. I thought it was the 70s. Since 1957, they've had the same values and beliefs since then.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not knocking LGBTQs by any stretch of the imagination, but what I'm saying is you can't dominate a conversation and sway it to where you want it, because people don't want to bend their beliefs
Mm-hmm.
to you,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't want to share that same understanding. This is where we're not communicating. We're talking at each other
Mm-hmm.
instead of coming to the conversation and understanding and saying, I respect the fact that you have a different point of view, and I'm just going to choose not to patronize. They've been around since 1957. You really think that's going to make a difference now? Why? For
Mm-hmm.
everybody who chooses to kind of lash out about Chick-fil-A about their values, people are going to go in droves even now, for people who share those same beliefs, Christians and other people who share the same belief,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to call it. And then at the end of the day, the food is good. So some people, you still going to have some LGBT who going to eat there. Why? Because the food
Mm-hmm.
is good and you still going to get great service. So
Right.
sometimes we're talking at each other. It's the same thing with gun control, when people talking about gun laws and all this stuff, because at the end of the day, nobody's trying to take your guns away. It's about responsible gun ownership, but nobody hears that word responsible.
Mm-mm.
They hear gun ownership. But the thing about being responsible, you have a lot of irresponsible people owning guns. Otherwise, we wouldn't have children out here shooting themselves because they're playing around with a loaded gun at home, and
Mm-hmm.
they found a way to get into the safe, because you're not using a safe that the children can't actually get into, or it's not in a place where they shouldn't be able to even reach to get to, just
Mm-hmm.
different things. And I say that because there was an episode of Power where Tariq actually got a hold of the gun and took his dad's gun and he knew where it was.
Mm-hmm.
Or the girlfriend's gun, the FBI agent, he knew where it was. And it happens all the time. Just had 3 within the past month here in Florida. I've heard one here in Florida, one in just different states. Babies, children shooting themselves, dying overloaded guns. Other children getting guns, playing around with it, shooting other guns. Um, Siblings. There was one a couple months ago of a sibling, 9 years old, shooting the baby brother because he wouldn't
Wow.
let him play with the video game. And so we're talking about responsible, but that's a term, but we're not paying
Yeah.
attention because we're talking at each other
Mm-hmm.
instead of with each other. Our
Mm-hmm.
conversations are lopsided. We're not coming to the same, we want to come together with our conversation, not be lopsided. And so a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times we have to think about the culture of certain things, industry. There's a lot of different factors when it comes to communicating in the right way. But if you want to have healthy conversation, there's a lot of different things we talked about. We talked about approaching the conversation in an open way, not automatically with an exit strategy. But a lot of that has to do with the type of conversation, the environment. Is it an uncomfortable conversation? Is it a heated conversation? Is it confrontational? It's going to determine whether or not you're in the conversation from a defensive point of view. Everybody has a unique perspective. Shanae was sharing with us about that. A lot of times, sometimes we're using just too much irrelevant information in the conversation. A lot of times people do that on purpose. That's a strategy to confuse you, to get you off focus, so you're not really paying attention, so they can get over on you. That's a strategy actually that people do. Communication is a learned behavior. I agree with Shanae on that. It really is. You have to practice. You have to keep teaching yourself. You have to keep practice. I don't care if you just do role play exercises. Shanae and I do all the time, especially when she's got an interview or something else going on. You want to be able to improve. If you want to show yourself in a professional way and you're not used to a certain environment, you've got to be. One of the things I talked about this weekend was speaking the language, because the language, hip hop language, is not the same as anywhere else. And so arts and entertainment is one industry, but hip hop language is not the same as R&B, jazz, or anything else. Music, entertainment, music is not the same language as movies and film and just different things. And so you want to keep things in context. We talked about, Shanae mentioned eye contact, listening well, effectively using silence, just understanding the importance of that, and reading between the lines. Silence allows you to read between the lines. What are they not saying? Whether it's with words, body language, facial expressions. Shanae hit on that because we have some.
We do.
We do. Watch any of our videos, you've seen a lot of mine.
We do.
I'm 40 years old and I'm not changing. My facial expressions are part of my personality. I don't know. You get to know me, she'll let me know that. But here's the most powerful thing that Shanae said, and I want to close with this because it is the gospel. Words hurt and words heal. Bottom line. Don't say anything you wouldn't want to digest yourself.
Yeah. That's good.
That's the reality.
That's good.
Words matter. That I've been using that hashtag all year. Words matter, just like manners. Manners matter. Words matter. And so just think about what you're going to say. That's when you effectively use silence, it gives you an opportunity to not only digest what they're saying, but respond accordingly. Sometimes we're so quick to respond right after somebody stops. No, use that silence to really mull over what that person has said, chew on what you've heard, and make the right response come out the way you need it to come out. And so we really hope that this has helped you, because we need to do better as a society all over the world, and learning how to communicate and not allowing our emotions to get in the way of what we're saying. And it's okay to have passion behind what you say, but we need to have some common sense as well. Just take a step back and realize it's not just about us. Conversation, it's you're not having a conversation if you don't have any response from the other person. And yes, silence is a response, but if they've checked out, you haven't had a conversation. You just been talking to yourself. And I'm be honest with you, there's no sense in wasting words. Don't just talk for the sake of talking. Words hurt and words heal. Shanae?
Yeah, that was good. That was really good. Two words come in mind that Dr. Hughes said: respect and responsibility. Be respectful of other people's opinions, other people's words, but also be responsible for yourself, for your words, for your actions. I think those two are words will help with effective and healthy communication. If you're responsible for what you say, don't be so defensive. Don't be so quick to, respond. And just because I have, sometimes I have an issue with this too, just because you are a outspoken and, person doesn't mean that everyone can handle that. Sometimes I can be a little aggressive. Sometimes I can be blunt. And you know what I'm saying, we all say, well, that's just how I am. If you can't take it, oh well. Context, okay? Context. Context. You know, some people can handle it and some people can't. You know, I can talk to my friends a certain way, but I can't be stern and blunt with my mama like that. That ain't gonna happen. Y'all won't see me on any videos in no time soon. So, you know, you have to be responsible. You have to be respectful. So yeah, again, like she said, we hope that this video of communication really helps. We hope that you have learned some things. We hope that you feel at ease with communication, with communicating, especially if you have a big conversation that needs to be had, you know, whether at work, with the spouse, you know, with a friend, yourself, because we can be harsh to ourselves too. So it's not just about other people, it's about ourselves as well. So, yeah, that's all I have.
Fantastic. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Tuesday Tips. Remember to spread lots of love and light.
Bye.
Thanks for watching another episode of Tuesday Tips with Dr. LaTonya Hughes and Shanae Jordan. We hope to see you back next week. Until then, remember to spread lots of love and light.